Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook with your host Edward McQueen and April Garner Davis.
Wow, somebody said we were live. Good. But it's raining everywhere. That's why I said that. Afternoon, Ms. Davis, Ms. Garner Davis. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm good, Brother Edward. How are you doing?
Fantastic for such a day. So many things happening and locally that sometimes you have to hold your head down and just stop and ponder, sorrowful things. But anyway, good afternoon to our audience. And tonight's show, April's really going to kick things off with this Black maternal mental health topic, and she's more qualified to kick it off than I am. I gotta say that. so I'm April. Please carry it away.
Yeah, well, before we get started, I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's show, and just want to remind you that it is okay to post questions and comments for our special guest tonight. Just drop it into the chat feature on Facebook or either YouTube. If you're watching from YouTube, please share this post if you're on Facebook, and also share the link if you are watching from YouTube. There's some very important information that's coming from the real expert tonight. I'm no expert by any means. I'm here to learn something tonight, Brother Edward. We're going to learn a lot tonight.
We all going to learn something tonight.
We really are, yeah. But tonight's topic is all about maternal mental health, and particularly Black maternal mental health. And I was talking to our special guest, Amber Ward, pre-show, and we were just kind of going over the show points as we always do with our special guests. And, it's really interesting because we don't really, I guess, discuss or talk about maternal health and what that really means when it comes down to, what women have to deal with as they are considering having families, birthing children, what happens in that process. And as you know, any woman who's gone through any type of a pregnancy leading to a successful birth still has that chance of running into some type of complication or, some type of incident that may happen in that birthing process. And so we were talking about, what the disparities, the racial disparities kind of look like, and also, what's happening to address those disparities. And we'll be talking about that tonight. And I was referencing the Policy Center for Maternal Mental Health in my quick research, as everyone knows that I always do on the show. And it's really interesting when you think about some of the key findings that are related to this very topic. And one in particular it mentions is that Black women had a mortality rate of 50.3 deaths per 100,000 live births. That's more than 3 times the rate for white women and significantly higher for Hispanic and Asian women. Why is that happening? That's what we need to understand, why it's happening. What are some of the root causes or core causes, but also what's being done to address it. And so we're having this great conversation tonight with our special guest, Amber Ward, who, to my understanding, Brother Edward, is coming to us from Hawaii. So that's extra special considering the time difference. So we're going to go ahead and get started with her. And again, we welcome all of our special guests. Please drop comments or questions in the chat. Also, you can drop some encouraging words to Amber. I'm sure she is ready for this topic. It is in her wheelhouse. And so, Ms. Amber, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hi, y'all.
All the way from Hawaii. I'm seeing it. I know you're doing some surfing out there.
I am not. Can you guys hear and see me okay?
Oh, you're perfect.
Well, you're doing good.
Yeah, you're absolutely perfect. Yeah. So again, Amber, thank you for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. And let's start with you just kind of giving a little bit of a bio of yourself to our audience so that they'll know who they're speaking with. I mean, you have all these letters behind your name. Yeah, the alphabet. Exactly. But, that just means that you're the one to go to for this great information and we really need this knowledge. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Hi. First, thank you so much for having me here, April. And it's wonderful to meet you as well, Edward. I'm really excited to be doing this quick conversation with y'all and getting to know a little bit more about not only Black maternal health, but also Black maternal mental health. I am a licensed midwife. I am actually only one of 3 midwives who are Black in the state of Hawaii, of licensed midwives. I am a certified professional midwife. And I'm also an internationally board certified lactation consultant. Less than 2% of lactation consultants globally are Black. And less than 5% of midwives are actually Black. And I think that that is probably a contributing factor to the Black maternal mortality that we're seeing, right? Not enough like representation and culturally appropriate care, which is what makes this work so important and meaningful to me. I have been in the reproductive justice birth world for about 7 years now. It kind of started after my youngest daughter was born. And then just through some complications and experiences I had with her that kind of led me to want to know more, right? And understand, what was happening to my body, what was happening to my baby, and what was, happening in the world around me. And I became a actual like peer counselor. And then I went from peer counselor to doula. I know we've been seeing a large movement of more doulas in the birthing space. And then I actually made that leap, and I met a Black midwife here in Hawaii, and she said to me, let me know when you're ready to start talking about becoming a midwife. And I remember I had every excuse in the world in the book for why it just wasn't for me, but here I am. Here I am. We've been in Hawaii 5 years now, and yeah. So that's a little bit about me. I have 2 beautiful daughters, Ava and Zara. They are 9 and they are 7. I am a military spouse. My husband is in the Air Force, and that is what brings us to Hawaii. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I was born and raised. But due to my husband's military career, it kind of took us from Charleston to Europe. We lived in Germany for about 5 years, and we've been in Hawaii for about 5 years. I love all things having to do with reproductive health, and also advocacy and empowering people to also be the experts when it comes to their bodies. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Wow.
Well, that's a lot about
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Having listened to your journey that you just propagated, so to speak, you mentioned the word a lactation consultant.
A lactation consultant, yes.
Lactation.
So I support women with breastfeeding. So that's lactation education, prenatal education, even consults, home visits. And that's just when, baby's having a little bit of trouble. I come in and I help families out with that.
Yeah, I looked that up, but I don't know if the audience taking the time to do that. So, a lot of people just saw that.
Probably most of the audience knows what it is. I don't know if you can see the comment stream, Amber, but you have a lot of supporters. A lot of people are actually watching tonight, a lot of women. And this is a very important topic for women. So, it's interesting that you mentioned that, you have pretty much lived, in different parts of the world, because there's always questions, always discussions about the comparisons between healthcare in the United States and in other countries. There's, always the talk about the fact that in some countries, some parts of the world, it's free. In the United States, we just grapple so much with healthcare access, healthcare costs, and all the things. And I do believe that a part of what you're going to share with us tonight is that all of those things impact the ability for, and we're going to stick to the topic, Black women. And we're going to talk Black and brown women. We'll talk all women, but specifically Black women. All of those things definitely impact our ability to access healthcare and get appropriate healthcare. A lot of times there are trust issues when it comes down to healthcare. I know whenever I moved from South Carolina to North Carolina, one of my goals was to find a Black general practitioner who was also female, because I'd never had that before whenever I was in South Carolina. And so, that's one of the layers of all of this, right?
Yeah.
And you come with, a lot of facets, to your background that would help a woman to better understand more about their body, more about what they need to be conscious of, and like you said, how to advocate for themselves. So why do you think, as you put a bow on what I just said, why do you think it is like important now more than ever for Black women to be advocates for themselves, to do the research, and also to be aware of the implications of Black maternal mental health and all the things that are shown in statistics, which kind of point to the fact that we seem to be losing in that area, but there is, there are things that we can do to actually make sure we're okay. So, yeah, dig into that a little bit.
Thank you so much, April.
Mhm.
I did want to highlight that it's actually Black Maternal Mental Health Week, and it is every year from July 19th through July 25th. And this week is important to like raising awareness for maternal mental health and how it affects Black women. So nearly 40% of Black women who have given birth experience or have been pregnant, not just given birth, right, have experienced maternal mental health symptoms. And that's nearly twice as many as all other Black women or other women. And I think, you talked a lot about accessibility, access to healthcare. But when we're hearing about maternal mortality, and we hear about how Black women are dying at 3 to 4 times the rate of white women and other counterparts, right? We're not zeroing in on a lot of these deaths. Are actually 47% of them, nearly half of them are happening in the postpartum. So the leading cause of mortality in the postpartum is usually, mental health related. So this is depression, anxiety, where folks are ending their own life at sometimes because they're not receiving like the support and the access to resources that they need. And a lot of times this has to do with being seen, being heard, and also understanding that the risk, right? Because everybody has their own individual risk. So the thing about maternal mental health is it's not a risk associated with ethnicity or race, right? It's a symptom of racism within the system. So it's not just being Black yourself, like just the idea or the verb, I guess you could say, the embodiment of being a Black woman is going to make you more susceptible to experiencing mental health concerns. It's actually your ability to go in, like you said, and see a provider who may look like you, who may speak like you, who may understand you. And I know this firsthand. After I had my daughter, Zara, I did have some complications. She ended up spending some time in the NICU. We struggled with breastfeeding. I struggled in the recovery, and I ended up experiencing postpartum depression. And so it looked different for me. So for me, my postpartum depression manifested in like irritability, anger, frustration, kind of things like that. It wasn't necessarily weeping or sadness like we would expect. And I think it kind of poured into that mold of the angry Black woman. So I remember going in and talking to my provider, and he was a white male, and I'm telling him what I'm experiencing and what's happening. And I'm 2 weeks postpartum, right? And he tells me that he knows of an anger management support group that meets Tuesday nights at 6 p.m. That's what I'm being told, because he wasn't taking into account my entire risk as an individual, right? I'm somebody who has just given birth. I'm somebody who's postpartum. I'm somebody who is experiencing complications with their child. Their baby is in the NICU, and all he hears is an angry Black woman. So that is what he's taking from it. So a lot of times when Black women are experiencing mental health crises, it's being contributed to those Black stereotypes that we see about Black women. And I think that is what is contributing to Black women not receiving the adequate care or education or resources that they deserve.
Yeah, that definitely creates, first of all, it's discouraging and it's intimidating. And, as Black women, if we were to encounter that, and I feel that in some instances, if I think really hard enough, probably have encountered something to that effect where I'm, for example, telling a doctor what I feel or what I believe is happening with my body, and it's being dismissed. So if we're encountering situations where even our thoughts about our own bodies are being dismissed, then it definitely creates the hurdles and the challenges, or I would say additional hurdles and challenges, because already within the Black community, we talked about a little earlier, there's already you know, sometimes a lack of cultural movement towards gaining the knowledge, their perceptions of, you know, medical care, and people
Yeah.
tend
There's
to not.
mistrust.
Yeah,
There's
because of the
mistrust.
mistrust. Yeah. So they tend to not get it, mainly because they, you know, I'm not going to go. It's going to be too expensive. And they're not going to be able to help me, or they're not going to, they don't want to help me, you know, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. So, you know, as we talk more about these disparities, and Brother Airward, even though this topic is about women, I'm sure that as you think about, you know, what a disparity is and how it can impact maternal mental health, you know, one of the things that I think is really sad is that, you know, the likelihood that someone will not seek treatment is usually at the hands of someone else who is responsible for giving a, you know, a woman treatment. And it's because of the way that they're being either approached, or how they're being handled in
Mm-hmm.
office. And you know, you're right, this whole, you know, angry black woman syndrome that tends to permeate society. Unfortunately, it's happening in our workplaces, and it's
Mm-hmm.
absolutely sad that it's happening now in our healthcare settings. So, as you think about these things, let's kind of get more into, you know, like the stigma behind healthcare, and how culturally, yeah, we tend to not go to doctors as frequently as we should, and not seek mental or even just regular healthcare in the way that we should. To me, that kind of points to the reason why there needs to be people like you who are in our, you know, the midwife role, or the, you know, in other roles that can
Yeah.
help when they don't want to seek traditional care. Let's talk a little bit about that.
That exactly. Thank you so much. And that is part of the reason why I became a midwife. Because I think about how my experience would have differed if I had met a provider who could have just said to me, like, you know, maybe I don't understand, but I see you and I hear you, and let's investigate this a little bit further, right? And that is one kind of value that I take into my care when I'm seeing any person, whether it's a Black woman, whether it's an Asian woman, whether it's a Native Hawaiian woman, whether it's a man who comes in and they need like testing, or you know, other things, right? um, and it's that you are the expert in your body. I am only here in this moment. And what is different about midwifery care is, you know, your traditional doctor's appointment will be what, 10-15 minutes. um, but when you're seeing like a midwife, that care can be up to 60 minutes in your visit. And I think that that gives a lot more time for you to be able to explore the person wholly, and truly get an understanding of who they are and what their we call them like their social determinants of health, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those are what kind of factors influence your health. So what is your work environment like, right? Do you have access to, you know, nutritional food? Do you have access to secure housing? Do you have access to the resources that you basically need to live in your life, right? And I think without looking at somebody wholly as an entire person, we cannot begin to try to treat them when we don't understand them, and we're just going off what we're seeing, what's presenting in our office, because that is when us as healthcare providers, we allow our own biases. We all have them, and we all do harm, whether known or unknown or intentional or not. We allow those to guide our treatment and our care. And I think that that is what the issue is, and why there's now been a stigma for Black folks with access and care, because they know that when they're going into the hospital, who they are as a person might be diluted, or it might be dehumanized in a lot of senses, right? And they don't feel seen or heard or even safe enough to speak up to access the care that they need. And even if they do speak up, will they be believed, right? So I think that that is on healthcare providers to do a better job of educating ourselves, and also some self-reflection, right? And understanding how we can be better in treating people who may not look like us, talk like us, or speak like us.
Brother Edward, you look like you have something to say.
Yeah, I do.
It's
I can't.
intriguing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I can't see it from a female perspective either. I'm sorry about that.
But it's an issue for men as well. Men experience the
Yeah.
same level of stigma when going to talk about mental health, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So walk us through the protocol, if you wish, for lack of a better word, for if after a woman has a child and suppose she wants to something happens to her present position and she has to seek another position. What steps do you recommend that this person should take in order to be adequately ready for whatever this new physician is going to be offering? I mean, you knowing the information that you've given out that they should be aware of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how would you assist them in that?
In selecting like a provider, like a new
Yeah.
physician.
Right.
So I'm sure, kind of have April mentioned earlier, I feel like we've all been there as a Black woman where we're asking, and whether it's at church, maybe it's in a Facebook group, do y'all know of any Black OBs, or do y'all know? And we see it all the time. Do we know of these providers? I'm a big fan of read the reviews, whether it's on Yelp, and also interview your doctor, interview your midwife, interview whoever you're going to be receiving treatment or care for, because they're working for you. They're there to help you reach your goals. So ask them, like, what, I've done a lot of work with trauma-informed care. So you can ask, like, have you done any learning around trauma-informed care? Have you done any work around cultural sensitivity or cultural humility? Have you done any work around, or even ask them, even if you're a pregnant woman, a lot of times you can ask, like, what is your C-section rate? Because sometimes that will tell you a lot about an OB, right? Like, how often are their clients going back for a cesarean? You can ask them about their preterm birth weight. How often are their clients having preterm labor? And ask them how they feel about doulas. How do they feel about midwives? How do they feel about culturally led care? How do they feel about community-based care? Whatever your values or whatever is important to you and you're looking for in a provider, ask. Because I feel like a lot of times as people of color, even as women, this goes for men and women, but women especially, there becomes that hierarchy, right? When we're looking at our provider or our doctor as the know-all, be-all, and we're expecting them to tell us what to do. And sometimes we aren't pushing back, we aren't asking questions. So one comment, or actually one question or one statement that I give a lot of the families that I work with is, if a provider is talking to you and maybe you don't understand, or maybe you don't feel like they're hearing you, you can say, I know that all of this might seem really common or normal for you, but this feels very, insert whatever you're feeling. This feels very scary. This feels very, frustrating for me. And it kind of reminds your provider that you are a human and you're not just another person walking into the office. And though they may have seen 30 people before you, but they need to kind of zero in on this moment that you are an individual and you are a person and you are deserving of care that is reflective of where you are in your experience in life and whatever your symptoms are. So that is a really easy way just to kind of zero them back in and kind of, me right now.
Yeah. So you've obviously had a lot of experiences, with situations like that, and that's what compelled you to be where you are right now. Yeah. So now, do you ever consider writing a book?
When I find some time, I would love to write a book.
Well, that's what I mean. Yeah.
I would love to.
Yeah, I think just having numerous experiences compiled in a book, that's enough to take up, I think, from what you said, many pages of what you've seen and what you've heard, what you've experienced. Put all that together with you being a midwife. Then you can put some warnings on there. Say, because I'm a midwife, blah blah blah. You don't have to do so and so. I know you've gone to your OBGYN, etc. How do you feel about that?
So I've actually, this year, we founded a nonprofit here in Hawaii called the SweetGrass Wellness Collective. And we are a group of midwives, doulas, herbalists, basically all the full spectrum of wellness and health. And we've been hosting classes. Just last week, I taught a class on trauma-informed care for doulas. And we also had a lot of folks who attended who were not doulas. They were just folks curious and interested about knowing more about what to look for. So I urge everyone to learn more, right? To reach out, because there are trainings. Last year, I had the honor of co-writing a curriculum, and we trained over 30 doulas in the state of Hawaii to go in as advocates with people. And don't feel like you have to do this alone. Take a friend, right? get a doula, especially if you're giving birth. Doulas are made to be, you're kind of like a birth bestie, right? They're there to be your emotional, your physical support, but they can also help you advocate for yourself. They can help you create a birth support plan. And this extends beyond like giving birth, right? This can be a traditional doctor's appointment. Just having someone that goes with you, who you know has your best interest in like heart and mind, and they can help you speak up and advocate. Because we've all been there where our throat kind of closes up and we leave that doctor's appointment and we think of that question we should have, could have, would have asked, but we didn't in that moment. And maybe it was because we already felt shut off, or we felt closed off to that provider, or maybe we felt like, you know what, they're kind of dismissing my concerns, and we kind of start to gaslight ourselves, right?
Correct.
One day I'm one person, and that's when I recognized last year, you know, girl, you're one person. And that's when I really started getting into educating and training and offering workshops and classes. I host bi-weekly support groups for moms. So we do postpartum support groups where they're able to come and talk about their experiences. Our nonprofit, we teach childbirth education and childbirth prep classes. We teach prenatal lactation classes, and it's just about getting that information out to people in a way that's accessible to them, and a way that they can ask questions and that they can also interact with it, right? So that's what I love doing right now, is really teaching those classes and those workshops and really helping people to get these tools. Yeah.
We do have a question from someone in our viewing audience. Thank you, Benita Stevens, for your question. How does lack of knowledge of the birthing process impact Black women?
I think lack of knowledge of the birthing process impacts more than just Black women. I think it impacts everyone, right? It's a lot of times when we're going into the hospital to birth, doctors, physicians, they're not normalizing the physiological process of birth. A lot of times birth and pregnancy itself is pathologized, right? And it's seen as something to be wrong, versus when really like giving birth is a beautiful ritual. I think entering motherhood is something very sacred and something that Black women haven't really been able to truly embrace until more recent years. But it's really kind of an opportunity for them to really connect with their body and go through the birthing process. And there doesn't always have to be all of these interventions, birth, motherhood, and all of that needs to be controlled, right? So I think that a lack of understanding of that birthing, pregnancy is a natural physiological process, leads to some of these disparities, because then Black women are going into the hospital and they're starting what's called the cascade of interventions. So what the cascade of interventions is kind of like where your provider offers, like, you know, like, let's just break your water, right? Then they break your water, and next thing you know, baby descends into like a wonky position. Now it's baby's fetal heart tones are kind of low. Let's take you back for a C-section, right? So it's where one intervention done by a medical provider that interferes with the natural physiological process of birth leads to another complication. So that's how providers not taking the time to really understand that birth is a natural process kind of impacts that. And then when you're getting into having a C-section, now there's a higher risk of hemorrhage, right? And now it's a longer postpartum recovery time. Now there's a higher risk of experiencing maternal mental health crisis, because now you're in pain. You've got a deep incision. You can barely move around. You can't really care for your baby. And then you had this scary thing that happened to you, right? Because C-section is a full-on whole abdominal body surgery to have that surgical birth of your baby. So I think that by not understanding what birth truly looks, feels like in its natural state is what is kind of leading to these disparities. So one thing I always tell folks when they're in the hospital system when they're giving birth is to use their brain. And I know it sounds kind of elementary, but it's actually an acronym. So B stands for, what are the benefits of this intervention? What are the risks? What are the alternatives? And then ask yourself, what is your intuition doing? Like when you really sit and you meditate on it, you pray on it, you think about it, whatever your internal process is, right? And then ask that provider, what happens if we do nothing? What happens if we wait and see? So a lot of times that will kind of give you your answer on whether or not an intervention in the birthing process is necessary. Because if there's no benefit to it, there's a lot of risk, and there's a safer alternative, then why would we choose to do that just because it's more convenient for our healthcare provider, right?
Wow. Yeah. You know what I'm going to say? I'm going to get back to this book again. You've already propagated for lack of a better word. The first 20 pages of your book. Yeah. When your conversation a few minutes ago, that's your first 20 pages. put more factors in there. You got maybe 30, 40 pages to go if you want to get wanted to be that um, influencing.
Yeah.
No, I'm not making a joke out of this. I'm just saying because you explain it quite well. You explain the reality of some things, and you make comparisons, and that's what a reader would want to see. Based on the title of your book, if your book has an attractive title, then they want to know. Okay, but we'll get to that at the end of the program.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that
Okay,
because we have a couple of other
have to
things
help
that
me, Edward. You're gonna have to hook me up with a publisher and an editor. I'll
all
talk,
that.
and I need a scriber.
There you go. So I want to get back to definitely talking more about the some of the things that are factors that lead to the conditions that Black women find themselves in whenever they're going through the pregnancy stages, the birthing process. And one of the things that seems to pop up in a few things that I've been reading here is just the presence of chronic stress. And stress as in environmental stressors, stresses in what they call metabolic or cardiometabolic stressors. And these are things that, if you are not going to a doctor regularly, if you postpone or delay, prenatal care, these things can lead to the complications and actually elevate the risk, right?
Yes.
And so I want to talk about that in light of underserved populations. And can you shed any light on what that looks like in underserved communities, and if death rates appear to be higher, or mortality rates definitely are not in favor of Black and brown people because of this delay in care and those environmental stressors that may exist. There's even one that is mentioned, partner relationships, which is, I mean, we don't even think about that as being a factor, but if you're not in a healthy relationship while you're pregnant, you're stressing yourself, you're stressing the baby, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it circles right back to those like social determinants of health, right? And the whole individual. So we know that systemic racism in general plays an entire key part in chronic stress for Black folks. So we look at Black folks of experiencing higher rates of chronic disease. So we're looking at things like, gestational diabetes or just diabetes in general, heart disease. Heart disease is one of the number one causes of death for Black women. And so we look at underserved populations. They have less access to work conditions that contribute to environmental stress. They have less access to quality food, right? So we're looking at Black and brown neighborhoods. We look at what stores and what restaurants they have there, but we're looking at other areas and looking at the accessibility of what stores and things they have there, right? There's a difference in that quality of food, right? There's less education on nutrition and exercise and the importance of this. And then in general, it doesn't really matter for a lot of Black folks what lifestyle changes they have, right? If they aren't experiencing like the support that they need for that stress, right? That's also a contributing factor. So it's looking at all of these different factors that play into experiencing disease, right? And then even things like lactation, like breastfeeding, so in the United States, 73% of families who give birth overall initiate breastfeeding. Only 47% of Black families who give birth initiate breastfeeding. So that is a big difference. So 73% of all other families are initiating breastfeeding, but only 47% of Black families are. But when we look at the benefits of breastfeeding in Black women, it lowers the risk of heart disease. It lowers the risk of cervical cancer. It lowers the risk of diabetes. And it also lowers these risks in the children. And it's not linked to how much, like the quantity of breast milk that she's producing, right? Or that the birther is producing. It's linked to the duration of breastfeeding. So just getting that education out there and understanding that there are benefits and things that we can do to help mitigate some of these risks over our lifetime. Something I don't want to say as simple as breastfeeding, because breastfeeding can be really difficult for some families. I know that it was for me, and that's why I became a lactation consultant. But this understanding that there are additional risks or other benefits to mitigate some risk later in life, just some of these other diseases that Black women would experience just by breastfeeding. So simple things like that, right? I think would be really important in getting that education out there.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the maternal mental health issues that we typically see, especially when it comes down to Black females and their mental health. It's probably something that's universal, that is, kind of seen across the board, no matter what race or ethnicity. But what are some of the conditions that women tend to experience?
Well, first, I want to say that I wanted to back up a little bit because you mentioned partners. Men, pregnancy is not just happening to the ladies. It's happening to the whole family. When somebody becomes pregnant, it's happening to their entire community. It's happening to your auntie. It's happening to your brother. It's happening to your sister. It's happening to your partner. It's happening to the siblings. Giving birth and having a baby is a huge life transition for everybody in this person's circle who loves them and supports them, who cares for them. Everybody life changes when somebody becomes pregnant and they have a baby. So I think within our community, if we stop looking at pregnancy as something that is just the responsibility of the person carrying the baby and looking at it as a family or a community effort to make sure that this person has exactly what they need, I think that that would also mitigate some of those disparities. And also it would lead to less maternal mental health issues because now this person doesn't feel like they're doing it alone, right?
Correct.
So maybe they're overwhelmed, right? Because they're feeding their baby, they're trying to go back to their life. They got to clean, they got to cook. Life does not stop for this person because they had a baby. They now have the responsibility of this child with every other responsibility that they had in their life before them. So maybe drop off a meal, right? Maybe start a meal train. Maybe instead of asking to come over to hold the baby, maybe ask if you can come over and fold that laundry that's been piling up in the rocking chair that she can't sit in to breastfeed her baby. Maybe come over and ask, like, can I do some light household chores for you? And also asking them, like, what do you need? What can I do to make you feel held and supported? Because maybe she wants to hand you her baby so she can go take a shower. Maybe they want you to hold this baby so they can go for a walk and they can breathe and they can still be a person outside of just becoming a mother. Like, we should not be forced. I don't want to say forced, like put into this mold of this model where we just take care of this baby and it's not an active effort from our partner and from our family members. And I think a lot of times that gets stigmatized. Like, if you had that baby, take care of them. But no, like, we should be doing this as a community. And we should be doing this together and making sure that this person feels supported, because then it gets into that mom guilt, right? Where then you don't want to reach out for resources because you feel like you should be able to do all of these things. And then you feel like you're falling short. And then comes that grief and that depression and that anxiety, because we don't want people to think that we're failing at motherhood. When in reality, I feel like communities are just failing mothers in general. And that comes from the system, that comes from the hospitals. And that is even coming from, sources that we expect to support families, like community resources like WIC or EBT or Food. All heard of families who are applying for these resources and they're being declined. And we're even seeing this with like how Medicaid is being cut now too, right?
Oh yeah.
So it comes from everywhere, and it shouldn't just fall on that person. So I think that's why we're seeing higher rates of that maternal mental health, because we're ignoring like all these other things that contribute to it.
And you're absolutely right. And, you were talking about, the kind of the self-imposed things. And as a new mother, you already have those questions about, am I going to get it right? Am I going to, you're already trying to figure out how to be a great mother. Even if you had a great mother, it's different when you become a mother, because you're trying to do it your way. You're trying to make sure you're doing what's best for your baby. And sometimes, those pressures that a woman feels, they're really self-inflicted, because, it's a learning experience regardless. Even if you've done it 1 or 2 or 3 times, every baby's probably different. Every situation is different. You have to adjust and do things differently. And so, those self-inflicted, I guess, feelings and beliefs, or even the doubts that come up, I can imagine that they do add to the mental stress that a woman feels. And so, we talk about postpartum depression, we talk about anxiety. We see it happening where women sometimes totally detach from their babies because they just cannot it can't handle the pressures or whatever the hormonal imbalances and all of those things coming together. And, when those conditions come together, I can only imagine that, there's the perfect storm that's happening. And on top of any other conditions that they may have had before, such as, like one resource even mentions, there might be some traumatic stress that woman is already dealing with. And now there's the stress of, having to rear a child, if they're not in a healthy relationship, trying to balance that. And it's just a lot. Like it's a lot. And so as you do your work, Amber, what are some things you can, I guess, advise women who may even be experiencing some of these things, or, women who are thinking about becoming pregnant, having children or whatever? What are some things you can advise them to do to make sure that they can maintain that balance and keep their mental calmness intact as they go through pregnancy and eventually childbirth?
So that's a beautiful question, and I love that. It's one of my favorite topics to actually talk about. One question I always ask new parents or folks who are hoping to conceive is, what is your plan for internal and external criticisms? Because you are going to have them. You are going to have them. So having like a plan for that, like what does that look like? Also, true postpartum planning, like what does your support system look like after you give birth? What is your plan for that? Because I think those are the things that people don't account for. We know that grief and joy can coexist together, right? And so can being prepared and being unprepared, because I feel like we prepare and we expect motherhood to be rainbows, butterflies, and sunshine and all those good things, and we don't account for the things that are going to be hard or negative. And I think having a realistic plan, 99% of the time when I talk to folks who are experiencing trauma, whether they've given birth, whether they've experienced loss, or whether they've even adopted, I've assisted with surrogate families, it's all of the things that they said, well, no one told me this, no one told me that. It's always the unexpected, like what they didn't expect. So when I'm doing birth planning with people, we plan for plan A, B, and C. And a lot of times there's a pushback, oh, my partner's great, my partner's going to do X, Y, Z, they're going to do this and this for me. And I say, well, did you talk to your partner about what their expectations are after you have this baby? Have you asked your husband you should see the look on couples' faces when I ask, well, who's going to do the laundry when baby comes? Who's going to do the cooking when baby comes? Who's going to do the cleaning when baby comes, right? So I say having those conversations with your partner in your household and having set those clear boundaries on an actual plan. That way nobody is feeling unsupported because you guys have a plan and you have expectations. It's when we have those expectations that aren't met is when we feel disappointment, when we feel and we feel unsupported, right? So just having those realistic conversations about, and that's why I was saying before, this baby is coming home to the whole family. I remember when we brought our daughter, Zara, home, my oldest daughter was 2, and we came from the hospital. She was fresh out the NICU, and we clipped her car seat into the back seat next to Ava, and she looks at us and she goes, that baby, with the most surprised expression. Like she could not believe that this baby was coming home with us. She was like, what is going on? Like she was shocked. She couldn't believe it. And I think that is what's happening, as a 2-year-old, but that's what's happening to your partner. Your husband may not admit it, but you're bringing this baby home. He didn't have this baby in his tummy for 9 months, right?
Correct.
He's like, what is going on? Now he's starting that new adjustment to this baby being in the house with you guys, right? So you've had the emotional and the hormonal preparation, and now you've come home and you have to integrate the child into the family, and it should be a whole family integration process. It should not just be on the person who gave birth. So I think that's my feedback for our families.
Well, that's great. And, and the reality is that there are instances where, there's not the presence of a true nuclear family or a whole family intact. So, you have a large number of single moms, or they may be in relationships where they're not married, but they, have chosen to have children. And you're right. It is about managing expectations, because, it's kind of one thing when we're walking around for 9 months and we're carrying the package, but when the package gets here and, it's time to take on all of the responsibilities, that's when people tend to check out, or, they just don't realize, okay, this is a lot of work. And it is a lot of work, caring for a a new human being, someone who cannot care for themselves, and, you know, the late nights and the early mornings and diapers and everything in between. So, you know, I'm sure that it can be, you know, a very daunting experience for especially a woman who is not in a solid relationship
Mm-hmm.
where they have that 24/7 connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it is important, like you said, to have the support system, you know, be it auntie, bestie, you know,
Friend,
sister,
neighbor,
friend,
doula,
whoever.
whoever,
Yeah,
have it. Prepare, set
correct.
yourself up. And sometimes you know your partner is not going to be supportive. Sometimes you
Hmm.
know that this person that you know you're having a child with or whoever is not going to be supportive, and that's okay, right? I think we put a stigma on single moms sometimes and look at it as something negative, but it's okay. Just make sure that you have what you need and reach out and you ask for help and resources and support. And I wanted to circle back. I love that you said that you have to take care of this human being. A lot of times when I'm counseling with new families, they'll have this plan like, oh, my baby is going to do this. My baby's going to wear that. My baby's going to take this type of bottle. My baby's going to take this type of pass. Your baby is going to have opinions. Your baby is
That's
a
right.
human being. And though you may think your baby will do this, 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 or that, your baby may want to do something different, right?
Hmm.
And so I think recognizing that too, like, you know, you just spent $200 on this set of bottles, and now the baby won't take any of those bottles.
Doesn't
The
like the
baby
nipples, hates the
doesn't like the
pacifier.
hates it, hates the bassinet, hates the socks.
Right. All of that. All
That
of
baby's
that.
gonna have opinions. It's a human being that you're bringing home. It's a whole person that you are raising, and they are growing themselves. And I think
Exactly.
we got to remember that too.
Yeah. So, you know, you've covered a lot in terms of, you know, the social determinants of health, the disparities that are prevalent and apparent in our communities, especially with Black women, the things that systemically are happening that we have to be mindful of, and also that should motivate us to be better advocates for ourselves. And I'd like for you just to take a moment to even talk about, you know, what are some ways that we can actually address these systemic disparities that impact maternal mental health? Things that can be done either from the standpoint of the individual,
Mhm.
or if they're working, you know, heads of organizations that are watching tonight, who are like, you know what, I might have a resource for that. You know, what's a way the community can make sure that these disparities are being addressed and hopefully, you know, alleviated or eradicated so that there's more equity in health
Mhm.
and healthcare and access.
I think that there's a story I like. I actually heard it at a midwifery conference back in January. I hope I don't tell it wrong, but this midwife told this story. She says that there's these three women, and they're sitting on the bank of a river, and they see a baby floating in the river, and it's crying. So one of the women, she jumps up, she runs into the river, and she grabs the baby, and she puts it down on the bank of the river. And then she sees another baby and another baby. So she's in the water, and she's grabbing all of these babies, and she's pulling them out of the water. And so one of the other ladies standing on the bank, she looks up to the top of the hill, the water fountain, the waterfall, and she sees these babies coming down the waterfall. So she says, I'm going to run up this hill and I'm going to see who's throwing these babies in the water, right? And so the other woman, she's there. She's like, I'm going to keep pulling these babies out. So the third woman, she's standing there. She doesn't know what to do. So she says, I'm going to run and tell somebody that somebody's throwing babies in the river. And so I think we ask ourselves, whose role is more important? The
Mm.
woman pulling the babies out of the river, the woman running up the hill to see who's throwing babies in the river, or the woman who went to tell somebody that somebody is throwing babies in the river. So I don't think that there's anything that's more important than the other. Like, there's a role for everybody. And I think we're always asking ourselves how we can better our community. So I just say, think about for yourself, what do you feel that you can do? Is it talking about it more, erasing that stigma that this is something that is happening, and we can talk about mental health concerns within the Black community, even unrelated to Black maternal mental health, right? Just mental health in general, like normalizing that we all experience a vast array of emotions, and that is the human experience. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to not be happy all the time. Or whether maybe you want to go out and you want to be involved. Maybe there's great organizations. Maybe there's your church. Maybe there's your school. Look in your area and see who is providing. You can do a quick Google search, right? Who is providing mental health support groups, right? How can you be involved? Do you want to lead a group? Are you someone who've experienced maternal mental health issues or mental health in general? I started out, I'm a midwife now, but I started off in peer support. I was just a mom who had breastfeeding issues, and I read a book or two, and I decided that I liked it enough to go in other people's homes and also help them with it.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you want to go out and tell your story. That is also raising awareness, and also, again, removing that stigma. Maybe you want to volunteer for a local organization. Maybe you want to donate to a local organization, right? Maybe you want to look at the hospitals around you, right? If you're someone who's into policy, right? You're someone who is an advocate. Maybe if you are in a position of power, maybe you want to look at the policies that you have in your establishment for the women who are working for your company. What are we doing to provide mental health resources to them? What does family leave look like for families? Are our families getting enough time off? Mom should not be giving birth and coming back to work in 2 weeks. So I say just look around you and think about how you can support a family or a Black woman as a whole, and that's what you should be doing. I don't think that there's any one thing that's more important than the other. I think it's whatever calls to you, whatever you connect with, and something that you can do realistically. And I think all that contributes to bringing awareness and reducing stigma and creating access, right?
Yes, absolutely. Well,
Wow.
Amber, I tell you, this has been quite the topic tonight. So many facets to it, as I said before, different layers. Everybody's situation is different. They're like I said, as a new mom, woman contemplating having children. They're coming into it with their whole selves, and
Mm-hmm.
then they're now adding the component of trying to become something else to someone else, a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and raising a child, like you said before, who will come into this world with its own personality and preferences, even as an infant. And I'm sure that I know for a fact, I'm a mom as well, have one daughter, and had a C-section and all the things that you mentioned. And when I think back on my journey, you're right, just recovering from the C-section alone was so hard on my body, and it was hard on me mentally and emotionally when you're trying to also
Mm-hmm.
deal with hormonal imbalances, things trying to return to normal, and then you're trying to take care of yourself, but then you
Yeah.
got little ones that you have to think about, and so the mental taxation is really, really high, and that's why it's important to have a strong support system. And I thank God that I had a strong support
Mm-hmm.
system, and was able to work through some of the things that probably would have made me a statistic if I had did not have
Mm-hmm.
those things in place, and those people in place.
It takes
So
a village.
yeah, it
I
takes
know.
a village.
I
It
know
really
for
does.
even for myself, like my auntie, my auntie Felisa, my auntie Lisi, as I call
Yes.
her. Like I always felt like I had her in addition to like my mom, like having like that duo, right? That's there. And to
Mm-hmm.
this day, I can always call my auntie for something. If I can't call my mom, I can call my auntie. If I can't call my auntie, I can call my best friend. And
So
I think
important.
like it takes like a village. It doesn't just take you. And I think that when we stop looking at Black maternal health, even Black maternal mental health is something that just falls on the person experiencing it, and look at it as like an epidemic, like it's something that's affecting the entire community, like we look at
Yes.
other things. I
Yes.
think that we will see a huge decrease in those rates, right?
Absolutely. So, Brother Edward, you've been kind of course, sitting on the sideline as the male listening in, and you're a dad yourself, and I don't know what your situation was like, but I can only imagine that as you think about some of the things that Amber shared tonight, you're like, wow, look, that's what that meant. That's what that
Well,
was.
well, well
That's why that happened.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah.
I don't know how much my wife wants to divulge it, but during the pregnancy of our son, or not during the pregnancy, but afterwards, he was breastfed.
Mm-hmm.
I think compared to a lot of other things, I think there was a difference, and there was a difference in his abilities to, according to the a pediatrician, stay normal. They got the pediatricians got these charts where
Uh-huh.
your child fall within the normal in terms of health and this and that,
Mm-hmm.
and he was there and above, and and I could be exaggerating, but I think breastfeeding has some very, very good qualities, and I can agree with that. You mentioned, Ms. Ward, that the name of your company was SweetGrass.
Yes. So
That has a Gullah tone to it. Is that correct?
yes. So the SweetGrass Wellness Collective, the reason that I felt really connected to the name Sweetgrass is because
Right.
I think it shows well it contributes to like history of perseverance for Black culture, right? We think
Right.
about what Black folks have experienced in this country over the past 400 or 500 years. But one thing that has always persevered through like resistance, through storytelling, through community, has been our culture. And that's where we think about those sweetgrass baskets in Charleston, South Carolina. You know, you think some of these baskets, they're still around to today, right? And it shows that I think of it as kind of that weaving of community, of culture, of history, and of what's to come next. So that's where the name Sweetgrass comes from. And it's to honor like that Gullah Geechee culture, but also Black culture and its ability to persevere.
Well, you come from Charleston. I mean, what else? Right.
Yeah.
So, well, I think. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, Amber, one last takeaway that you would like for the audience to hear as it relates to this topic and what you want them to know moving forward.
So I know this was a lot of information and it can feel really, really overwhelming. And I know lots of people's wheels are probably turning on how they can get involved, where they can support, and also probably reflecting on their own journeys, right? So I would just say that, you know, I've probably said it here before too, grief and joy can coexist. So always take a moment to understand that your journey is your journey. It is your experience. It may be different than someone else's or another's, but that doesn't make it any less valuable. And also, I think even with all these letters behind my name, right, we forget that lived experience is still valuable. And whatever you're experiencing in your life is something that could maybe help someone else. So if you have a story to tell it. I think if you want to get involved. I know sometimes as Black women, we can experience imposter syndrome, and that can be seen in motherhood. It could be seen in the workplace. It could be seen anywhere, right? But just understanding that you have the tools and the resources needed to advocate for yourself and your community because you are a Black woman. Like, what else? Who else is going to do it, right? So just feeling empowered to do that. And even Black men listening here today, to know that you can speak out for your community and your own experiences as well too. And I think when we start recentering the voices and lived experiences of the very people who are experiencing the thing we're talking about, whether it's Black maternal mental health, whether it's mental health, whether it's maternal health, right? No matter what it is, when we start centering the very people who are in the trenches going through this experience, I think we'll really be able to see what is needed and can pour into those places. So yeah.
So
that's all I'm gonna
yeah, before we close, I have to ask what IBCLC stands for.
It's an internationally board certified lactation consultant. A really long word to say that I could go anywhere in the world and support people with breastfeeding. I'm also a certified lactation counselor as well. So I have a dual lactation certification. But it's just a very long, pretty word to say that I sit with women, I hear their stories, and I help them reach their goals. And that's all.
Sounds like the salutation of a book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Amber, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. We really do appreciate it. And we'd like to thank our viewing audience for participating by posting your comments and your questions. And again, this broadcast is available for the next week on wcmagazine.net. You can also view it on our YouTube channel. It's always there on the YouTube channel, so you can go back to it. Click, like, share, as they say. And it was definitely a pleasure. We do thank you so much for taking your time. What time is it, by the way, in Hawaii?
It is 2 p.m. in Hawaii, y'all. I'm on my lunch break, so I decided So thank y'all for enjoying this time with me. I've been so excited. If you guys want to, y'all can check out our website, which is www.sweetgrasscollective.org, or you can follow us on Instagram at SweetGrass Hawaii. And check out some of the events that we're offering within our community. I know that they're here in Hawaii, but maybe to give you some ideas of some different things that you can do within your community. Because again, right. we're just community advocates, just trying to do some things to provide some access to the mothers in our community, right?
Mhm.
Wow, well, we're lucky. We're fortunate. Wow, to
Yes.
grab
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Okay. Catch you at
Glad
your
you have that
lunchtime.
connection here to our community. Yeah, you're one of us. So thank you so much. We really do appreciate it. And Brother Edward, it's been great tonight. I really enjoyed this topic.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I mean,
next week we'll have some more information. You know, school is just around the corner. And so we'll probably be able to share some information on how to get ready for back to school. I think that would be a great place to start.
yeah,
There's a lot of
absolutely.
back to school giveaway events and community events that are happening to get everybody ready. So maybe we can, possibly round up some educators to come on and help us with that. That's just an idea for next week. And I want to thank personally Jafrania Graham for approaching us about doing this particular show. She is a rock star. I really love G is what I call her. And we appreciate it. And she's always trying to, put a little idea in my head about something that we can do or talk about on the show. And we encourage all of you to do the same. If you have a great topic that you would like for us to cover or to share, or, we'll find a speaker, we'll, pull some information and share it with the community. That's what we're here for. So, before we go, I definitely want to just kind of pop some comments on the screen. Amber, they're coming in so that you can see all of the wonderful comments that are coming in from your supporters. And I think this is wonderful. Thank you, Ms. Reeves. Please share the information with your granddaughter. That is wonderful. Tammy Williams D-Berry, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. And of course, Benita Stevens, who was with us for the entire broadcast. We thank you for that as well. So anyway, have a good rest of your day. It's afternoon for you. It is 8:12 here in on the East Coast, I should say. And we appreciate everyone for joining us tonight. We'll see you again next week at 7 p.m.
April, let me send a shout out to Jafrania for her participation in 2 hour summer jobs program.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And they did a great job, especially during the finale of the program with the children that were present. It may, I think it was on Facebook, I'm not sure, but it was a grand celebration of the accomplishments, and I saw the outcome of some of the experiences that the three or four young people there that they had, and at that point, I say our future looks bright. That was really, really great. I can't say a whole lot right now, but in the interest of time. But anyway, kudos to Miss Graham, Jafrania, and my brother George the third. I'd say George the second or third. George Graham.
And I wanted to give a shout out to my auntie Felisa McDavid, my mommy Marietta Hickman. Also, Jafrania, thank you so much. It was a whole incredible experience. Thank you to you, April. Thank you to Edward. And one last thing, I want to leave the folks in South Carolina that I implore you to look at the history of Black midwifery in the South. Look up your grand midwives who are out here doing this work long before midwives like me. And it's upon their shoulders that we stand on to keep building on their legacies. So if you have not heard of a granny midwife, of a grand midwife, I'm pretty sure your community had one. So definitely look into that history if you feel so called.
All right. That's a grand charge. That's a grand charge to the community. Thank you so much, Amber.
You're welcome.
So what do you say in Hawaii when you're saying goodbye? Is it aloha?
You can say aloha or mahalo nui.
Oh, mahalo. Yes. All right. Well,
my daughter's over there like mahalo.
Well, like she's having a good time out there.
Yes. I can't. Yes, absolutely. So take care, everyone. And we appreciate you watching tonight. Have a good week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Godspeed.
Thank you for watching the World Community Magazine's Hour of Power Live on Facebook.